Welcome to the Bridge Capital special report on volatility. I'm your host, Eric Jefferson, managing partner with Bridge. As we've seen, market open today, Monday, August the 5th, down another 3%. That's bringing recent volatility or a percent decline from the early July high, roughly 10%. I want to spend a few minutes quickly talking through what's contributing to that. More importantly, give you some talking points on what we're focused as we think about allocations going forward. Before we get started, though, a few quick words from our legal team. With that, we can go ahead, dive right in. So, a lot of the recent volatility has been attributed to a continual softening in some of the economic data, specifically unemployment. Last Friday, we saw that figure tick higher to 4.3%. Now, keep in mind that's still well below the average of about 4.7 for the last decade. That being said, we think about how that has steadily increased. It's up about 20% from where it was in January of 2023. Obviously, that does suggest some softening that those lagged effects of the Fed's interest rate policy have started to be felt. The other concern with unemployment is that that tends to be more of a lagging indicator or looking into the rear view, so to speak, as opposed to where are we going. That trend has certainly softened. And so you have seen many sort of revise their forecasts for a soft landing versus recession. Now, the good news, economic growth still remains fairly robust. Last quarterly's reading came in at 2.8, well above long-term averages. We are a service-led economy as opposed to producing physical goods. Got some service data this morning that came in very favorably. Lastly, theme we've talked about for a while, U.S. consumer makes up about 70% of the U.S. economy. Although everyone is certainly feeling the impact of higher prices, the U.S. consumer, particularly when you think about some of those higher earners that disproportionately contribute to that much more of overall consumer spending, those folks do still remain in fairly good shape. So when we think about the data, certainly has been some softenings, certainly some concerns we're going to continue to monitor when you think about the path going forward. That being said, far cry to say this very moment, we are in a recession. Certainly that's not being reflected in a broad analysis of the data. As we think, though, about markets, they do tend to overshoot both to the up and downside, overreacting to good and bad news. In this scenario, not necessarily surprising. We have seen a handful of stocks record triple-digit gains over the last year. Arguably, you can say it's healthy to see some of those stocks correct. Overall, we also seen valuations be very elevated. That, in many ways, kind of sets the stage for when a shock does occur for the market to have a very sharp reaction to it. Certainly, this consistent uptick in unemployment would certainly qualify. That being said, we think about where we are today, haven't necessarily made any moves in the portfolio. Really, we're going to be looking to both the economic data as well as the Federal Reserve as we think about market will likely take its cues from the two of them. We think about the path going forward. The silver lining in all of this, we think about investors that take a diversified approach. We certainly have now seen fixed income offer those defensive behaviors or characteristics. Bonds have appreciated very significantly. That based on the expectation that the Fed will be cutting rates here. That obviously in response to what has been continued progress on inflation with now some somewhat softening data on the labor front. Hope that helps. As always, happy to take the time, talk through positioning, talk through outlook in more detail. If we don't connect, appreciate you listening and stay tuned for the next one. Thanks.